All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the March Silva MMA Show. Today, we are going to speak about the MMA, what happened on this weekend. We had Eagle FC and Bellator, and then we're going to preview UFC this weekend, Hermansson versus Strickland. And once again, to join me this week is Oscar Silva. How's it going?
It's going fantastic. Not the craziest weekend in mixed martial arts we just had, but we did have two events, and one was in Eagle FC and the other was in Bellator, and we'll recap those for you right now.
And starting off, we've got Eagle FC. We're not going to talk, too much into this into the event, but we're going to talk about the main event and the co-main event, and we'll talk about Ray Borg versus Cody Gibson. But Sergey Karatonov did what he had to do to win this fight, and he did it unorthodox, because if you look at how Karatonov fought in his MMA career so far, he's primarily a boxer, likes to keep it on the feet, striking, and I feel like Sergey Karatonov did what he needed to do to win this fight, and that was the wrestling. Tyrone Spong is never going to be able to catch up with the wrestling that Karatonov has learned in his career. Yes, he's a boxer, but he's still going to overmatch Spong in the wrestling department and the grappling, and that's what Karatonov used to get this one done. It showed that Spong paid the price for probably not being in MMA as active as probably he needed to be, but he's been active elsewhere in kickboxing, boxing, and I really feel like that's where his heart should lay right now.
Yeah, I only picked Spong for this fight because I didn't know that Karatonov was going to go out there with a wrestling approach. I thought these guys would just strike, and that wasn't the case. Sergey got the takedown, and Spong, he's got one foot out the door, He's still actively competing in stand-up only combat sports, and that's not going to get you very far in at this level MMA. And Sergey proved that he got the takedown, got the ground and pound. Tyrone couldn't get up, and it was over. Pretty light work for Sergey.
Yeah, exactly. What you said there, pretty light work. As soon as he got to the ground, you could just see the difference in class, the experience. Karatonov been in his round for forever, since 2000, fighting in Pride FC, and Spong, he hasn't competed since 2019. I feel like this is for Spong. This is probably just get back in the ring, get that feeling back of competing again, because he hasn't competed for a very long while. So I definitely like to see him go back to boxing. I feel like that's where he'll be able to, compete with the best in the world. And he almost had that fight against Alexander Usyk. So maybe them two can, you have to get a few more wins now, obviously, but hopefully them two can finally get that fight sealed and done. It'll be a really good fight. But yeah, Karatonov did what he needed to do to get this one done. And a return of a legend was Rashad Evans getting the win over Gabriel Keko. We both picked against Rashad Evans in this one, and he proved us wrong.
Yeah, Rashad Evans was on a very bad stretch late in his career. He was losing to guys like Sam Alvey, and I really didn't think he was. I didn't really think he had the fighting spirit heading into this fight. The guy's he's calmed down. He's very much settled into that retirement life. So when he announced that he was coming back, I was thinking it was not a good idea. But he fights a guy like Gabriel Checo's not a top of the food chain guy, but he has very legitimate skills. This guy was competing in Chelsea and submission on the ground against top of the food chain grapplers and holding his own. So I was thinking he was going to submit Rashad, but Rashad still has legitimate skills, and he was just able to be ahead against Gabriel pretty much everywhere. Gabriel did give him some tough moments in the fight, but Rashad really was able to get out of those tough spots, and he really shone in this fight. But I don't think he should fight again. I don't feel like he can compete at the highest level, but I felt like he needed to do this just to get that monkey off of his back.
Yeah, I feel like this is the right spot for Rashad. Not performing, not fighting in the UFC, but maybe taking these lower level matchups outside of the UFC and the Eagle FC. I think it's a good way to end off his career. And as you mentioned, to get that monkey off his back after a 5-5 losing streak, and just to say, but I ended in the win column. So this is probably a big pressure off for Rashad Evans, and it's probably what he wanted to do. And he did. He got his hand raised, and it was nice to see him get his hand raised. Rashad Evans is a legend side MMA. The 5-fight losing streak, it wasn't pretty. He was getting knocked out against fighters that probably in his prime he would have single-handedly beat. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Rashad Evans. He can probably still beat some of these lower level guys, but his hopes to compete in the top 5 of a division anywhere are probably non-existent. So I don't know if it's a good idea to keep competing if you don't believe you can beat the best, which I honestly I don't think he does. So Rashad Evans, he's in good shape. He's in the best spot mentally he's ever been, but I don't know if that mental spot is the best for fighting.
Yeah, I've got to agree. Habib came out and said that he's going to offer Rashad Evans a multi-fight deal with Eagle FC. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. But two UFC vets, Ray Borg and Cody Gibson, both fought in the UFC before. Now they're fighting outside of the UFC, but they're still going at it. And Ray Borg versus Cody Gibson was one of the best fights that I've seen this year already. It was a fantastic back and forth. The scrambles were crazy. Both of them went at it. It was such an entertaining fight from start to finish. I loved every minute of it. What you get with Ray Borg is he's gonna entertain, and his scrambles, man. His scrambles in this fight was absolutely insane. I loved it. This Ray Borg is definitely a fight that we talked about this before we went on air. It's definitely a fight that could be top 10 inside the UFC right now.
Yes, not to see Ray Borg doing well. He lost the fight to Ricky Simone, and then he had several fight cancellations, and ultimately the UFC had to let him go. And now he's out here in the best shape of his life, not missing weight anymore. And man, he's performing very well against a top level guy like Cody Gibson. Cody Gibson was unceremoniously cut from the UFC. I never really agreed with that cut. I feel like he can still compete with and beat a lot of the guys in the bantamweight division. So when he was let go, I knew he would do well outside the UFC. But I did think Ray Borg was a bad matchup for him. But he did bring the fight to Ray Borg, and both guys really put on the show. A lot of spinning kicks, a lot of scrambles. I loved it, man.
Yeah, it was a fantastic fight. One of the best fights that I've seen this year. And Jorgen De Castro got back in. Well, is now on a 2-fight winning streak. Since getting released from the UFC, he's gone 2 back-to-back. He got that submission in round 1 against Sean Asher. It's just good to see Jorgen De Castro since that cut, how it ended in the UFC, getting back in the win column. Obviously, getting a win streak of his own now.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be a knockout by Jorgen, but the guy goes out there and gets a quick submission. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see where Jorgen Castro goes next. But when he got on that mic after the fight, he did call for Habib and saying that I want that multi-fight deal with Eagle FC. So that will be interesting to see if he does get that. I'd like to see him stay with Eagle FC, maybe get a few more wins and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that some people probably remember from the UFC because he had that crazy KO over Justin Tafa in his debut. So I feel like he would definitely get some eyes on there and probably give people some highlights to look at.
Yeah, and definitely some eyes were on this weekend at Bellator 273 because it was the only card that we had this weekend. We had the Eagle FC, but that was on the Friday. But on the Saturday, we had Bellator 273, Bader versus Moldovsky, and it was a decent card. It was full of some names. We had Benson Henderson, Ryan Bader, Valentin Moldovsky. We had Aiden Lee versus Henry Corrales versus. I don't know if you watched that one, but that was an anticlimactic end. I don't know what happened at the end, and it was crazy. Sabah Marcy getting it done in an absolutely phenomenal, crazy first round. And we've got Darren Caldwell just not looking at his old self at the moment, not looking like the Bellator champ that he once was. So we start from the top. Ryan Bader versus Valentin Moldovsky. This was a grueling fight, and Ryan Bader got the best of him.
Yeah, Valentin Moldovsky is super tough, man. He took some serious punishment for Ryan Bader. And we honestly, we kind of trashed Ryan Bader on the show last week. We said that the guy's getting old. He doesn't take shots as well as he used to, but I feel like we were judging him too harshly because we were looking at his 2 KO losses at light heavyweight, which light heavyweight for Ryan Bader is no longer a good idea. I think the weight cut takes too much out of him, and I think he hates much harder at heavyweight. He's one of those guys who once they put on 30 pounds, this guy just hates way better. And he showed it here against Valentin. I thought Valentin was actually gonna be the guy putting a hurting on him, but Ryan Bader gave him a very tough fight, and it was actually even heading into that last round. But quite honestly, Ryan Bader was the one doing more damage, doing more. Moldovsky just getting control time. That wasn't enough. That's why Ryan Bader got the decision in the end. And as I said, I think he just stick around at heavyweight. He's doing much better here, and he's the champion. I think his time at light heavyweight is over.
I've got to agree with you. I think the heavyweight is the move for Ryan Bader next, and it will be next because they announced after the fight that he will be defending his heavyweight belt against Czech Congo in Paris. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Glad to see that they're bringing European MMA again over here, and then obviously in Paris. I'm not too sure that might be the first show in Paris in MMA history. I'm on top of my head.
Bellator actually already went to Paris, but
they might have done.
Yeah.
The second then, because it might be the second then. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I forgot.
It was it Timothy Johnson versus Congo?
You might be right. Right.
Because I don't know off the top of my head. I can't really think, but I think that rings a bell a little bit. But Ryan Bader, as you mentioned, it was 2-2 going into the fifth. That first round, Ryan Bader came out hot. He was fresh, bounced on his toes, and hit with that big right hand at the top. It dropped Valentino Moldovsky and got him really hurt. I feel like if Ryan Bader put on a little bit more pressure, who knows what could have happened. But Valentino Moldovsky just did enough to stay in the fight. He got hit with some sort of bombs from Ryan Bader. I thought, the wrestling was very equal. Moldovsky was able to hold Bader down when he was on top, and then Bader was able to hold Moldovsky down when he was on top. So they were very equal in the grappling aspect, and it was whoever got them to the ground and who was on top that they were winning the round. And Bader just did enough in the fight to really get it over the line. The fifth round, he showed championship heart, and he got it over the line. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on against Congo, the rematch after their anticlimactic end with the finger poke, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But the co-main event, we had Benson Henderson versus Islam Mamedov, and my gosh, we absolutely wrote off Benson in this one, and he proved us wrong.
Yeah, this is another guy we kind of trashed on the show. We said that he was in his later age. He was past 35, and he was fighting a guy in Islam who had not lost in a very long time on a huge winning streak. He has the kind of style that beats most MMA fighters, but Benson Henderson is not most MMA fighters. This guy is a bona fide Hall of Famer, multi-time champion, beat guys like Frankie Eggert and Clay Guida. This guy has the scrambling ability to beat Islam Mamedov, but I didn't think he would be on his A game in this fight, and he was. I kind of feel like this is another case where we judge a guy a little bit too much based off his performances in other weight classes. I don't know why he would ever fight at welterweight, besides not having to suffer through the weight cut. This guy does not compete well at welterweight, so when he fights at lightweight, he definitely fights a little better. And he asked Scott Coker, what do I need to do to get a title shot? And he said, fight Islam Mamedov. And he fought him and he beat him. And I agree with him getting the decision. It was a split decision. I didn't get it. Islam Mamedov simply didn't do enough. This was a little similar to the Bontrain versus Roy Valle decision, where one guy was just trying to hold and the other was doing a lot more. And that's why I scored it for Benson.
Yeah, and then after this fight, Benson Henderson, it came out later that he's now a free agent, and he's reached out to Eagle FC to see what the options there. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes next. But I know Benson Henderson is hungry to get that Bellator title. I think it's one that has evaded him since being in Bellator. So I think he will re-sign with Bellator and get another shot at that.
Yeah, and now I feel like Patricky being the champion. Not to trash on Patricky, but I feel like he's an easier fight than his brother. So I feel like that it's a more of a winnable fight than Patricio was. So yeah, I feel like that title shot is a possibility, especially if he resigns. Obviously, yeah, he even considered retirement after the fight. I feel like he performed too well in this fight to retire. Not off of this. If he had lost the fight, I would have said, yeah, sure, retire, but when you look this good against a 20-1 guy, why not step in there one more time and prove to your doubters that you can still compete at the highest level?
Well, he, as you mentioned there, Scott Coker said if you beat Islam Mamedov, you get a title shot. So surely next time he steps inside the cage, it will be against, as you mentioned there, Patricky Pitbull. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there and what goes down. But Henry Corrales versus Aiden Lee. It was 2-0 Henry Corrales going into the third, and then we got like an eye poke, and eventually it stopped the fight. It was scenes that we didn't really want to see. Aiden Lee looked distressed. The 5-minute timer, you get 5 minutes to recover after an eye poke. The 5 minutes were done. Aiden Lee said, "Can I have one more minute?" But the timer was up. If you can't recover in them 5 minutes, that's it. The fight is over. And then Mike Beltran waved it off and said he can't recover. 5 minutes is over, so the fight is done. And they went to a scorecards. They go to the scorecards. That was they judge it through the first 2 rounds, and then what was happening in that third round. So Henry Corrales got the decision, and rightfully so. He won them first 2 rounds.
It was disappointing to see Aiden Lee not being able to recover from the foul, but at the end of the day, the fight would have been Corrales' anyway. Corrales, this was a very important win for him. Aiden Lee's a very talented guy, and if Corrales can get a couple more wins, then maybe he can get back to that title shot. Because man, I was really thinking he had a chance back when he fought for the title against Patricio. So good to see Corrales get a win.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be good to see where him get a title shot, as you mentioned there. He's beat Aaron Pico in his career. When he knocked out Aaron Pico, stunned the world. It was incredible. Sabah Homasi as well. An absolute clinical performance of Sabah Homasi. Got knocked down, and when Sabah Homasi gets knocked down, the fight that the end is coming soon, because if he knocks you down, he's got such a great finishing instinct. We've seen it in the UFC, we've seen it in Bellator, and his hands are so heavy. And if he's going to finish the fight, I'd usually predict it's either a knockout. And he got it done by submission in this one, and I believe they said in the commentary this was his first ever submission in his MMA career.
Yeah, Sabah Homasi rarely goes for submissions. He's a classic knockout artist. Just think about his fight with who was it last year that he had a great war with. What's the name? One of the great English fighters.
Yeah, Paul Daly.
Yeah, Paul Daly. That was such a great fight, and you would have never known he had a submission like this in his pocket if you had seen that fight. But yeah, he got the knockdown, and he's a talented guy. Despite the pretty gnarly record of 16-10, the guy has a very good skill set, tons of power, and he got it done in less than 2 minutes against Willis.
Yeah, he's knocked out quite a lot of people in his career. But yeah, this was his first ever submission in 16 wins. So that was actually second. I'm looking at his career now. So that was his second ever submission. So it tells you there he's got heavy hands. We've seen it. We've seen it in the, as you mentioned there, the Paul Daly fight with that wild back and forth, and Paul Daly bringing one of the best comebacks we've seen in recent years. Darren Caldwell is in need of a career comeback. He was the Bellator champion, challenged for the Ryzen champion against Kuruchi. Yeah, it didn't go his way, and then Kuruchi rematched him for the Bellator champ, and he lost that. And I feel like since then, his confidence, his mentality, everything has dropped. In the first 2 rounds, don't get me wrong, he was winning, but in that third round, he was tired, and he just didn't look himself. And Barzola, I feel like Barzola is a fighter that you don't want to fight in the third round is when you're tired. He was like a different animal in that third round.
Yeah, Barzola had a really good comeback in this fight, clearly losing early. But once Caldwell slowed down, he took advantage, and he got the ground and pound going, and the referee had to wave him off. This is a signature win for Barzola, the biggest win of his career, a former champion. I don't really agree with the UFC. This is another guy that I never really agree with the UFC releasing, because he had very competitive fights with great talent, and now he's doing very well in Bellator. I really think he has a potential to fight for the belt one day.
Yeah, 100%. Well, he's just opened himself up to the rankings, to the rest of the division now with a win over a former champion against Darren Caldwell. It'll be interesting to see where Darren Caldwell goes for me. I think he needs to take a step back, evaluate, definitely talk to Henry Hooft. Henry Hooft is a master, being able to see what's next. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens next. I know he's over there at Sanford MMA, so them guys over there will be able to definitely lead him. But Chris Gonzalez put an absolute clinical performance against Saad Awad, a head kick that absolutely just demolished it, absolutely crippled him, folded him, and that was the end of the fight. It was a perfectly set up shot, and it was beautiful to see. It was like handed down of a torch in this one. The prospect getting a win over that.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that Bellator is hoping on these days. They've put a lot of prospects on their card, and this was a real test for Gonzalez, and he got it done in under 40 seconds with a brutal head kick. I cannot wait for Chris Gonzalez's next fight. This guy always brings the action.
Yeah, and Dalton Roster improving again to 6-0 with a unanimous decision win. And the rest of the card, not too much to talk about. Lucas Brennan gets a submission in round 1. And then Big Tuna, Ben Parrish, loses in the first round after he upset in his last fight. I can't really remember off the top of my head. He upset one of the biggest prospects. Might be Christian Edwards off the top of my head.
Yeah, the name is not in my brain. It's gone.
Yeah, well, Ben Parrish not getting the same result as he wanted from his last fight in this fight. But, we move on. And then we've got a big UFC card this weekend that we're going to talk about. Hermansson versus Strickland, the main event. And then the co-main event, we've got Nick Mamavov versus... Now the name slipped to my head.
Punahele Soriano. I think that's
there we
going to
go.
be a fun one.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one. But we're going to talk about the main event at the top of the bill, Hermansson versus Strickland. Here we go. A main event in the 185 pounds, as we see there. Hermansson looking to go back-to-back wins after his Kelvin Gastelum fight was his last fight, I believe.
No, it was Edmund Shabazian.
Jared Cannonier. Oh, my
Edmund
God.
Shabazian. Yeah.
I completely lost.
Those fights are from 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. It's been that long?
Yeah, time flies. That Cannonier fight was a tough loss for him, and then the Vettori loss was a tough loss for him. But the win over Edmund Shabazian was a win he really needed. In the first round, he was actually getting pieced up. He had a slow start, and come the second round, as Edmund Shabazian tends to do, he slowed down. He got the takedown, got brutal ground pound going. And I feel like if there was 30 seconds left in that third round, he would have gotten the finish. And on the other side, we got Sean Strickland. Last time he fought was all the way back in April of last year against Uriah Hall. He destroyed Uriah Hall. It was complete domination. He rocked Uriah Hall bad at one point. And that's one of many wins for Sean Strickland. In fact, he's never lost at 185 pounds. And he's got a really good test in front of him in Jack Hermansson, one of the best grapplers in the division. He's got maybe the best guillotine in all the UFC, the Joker team. And I really think that this all comes down to Jack Hermansson's wrestling ability. Jack Hermansson has less than 40% takedown accuracy, and Sean Strickland has really good grappling if you talk to anybody that's trained with him, including guys like Bisping. And I really think Sean Strickland can stuff these takedowns from Jack Hermansson and just outpoint him on the feet, land the heavier shots. Jack Hermansson's striking is still developing. It's not the prettiest, but he's a dog. All you have to do is see that Marvin Vettori fight. That fight was spectacular. He was clearly limping. He was hurt, but he still toughed it out and fought his way to the final bell. And I feel like this is going to be a similar fight than the Vettori fight. Sean Strickland, he loves to fight. He's a madman. And I feel like he's going to be trash talking the whole way through. And I think he's going to just piece up Jack Hermansson for 5 rounds. We got a comment here. Strickland is a Stipe concentrate, just add a few drops to a 5-gallon jug of water.
I don't know what that means.
I don't even know what that means, honestly. But if you're saying that he has a wrestling base and good boxing, I feel like that's a fair comparison. But does he have the power of a Stipe? Absolutely not. So that's where that comparison kind of goes wrong. But Lenny, who do you think wins this middleweight matchup?
I'm going to go with Sean Strickland. I feel like in recent performances, he's looked the better fighter. His striking as well is clinical. I feel like with Sean Strickland, he doesn't waste any strikes when he's on the feet. He doesn't waste anything. Every strike he throws It's intention to land. It's intention to do damage. We've seen it in the John Phillips fight when he's saying, "Come on, John, come on, John." He's getting him riled up, and he's getting in the head, make him to make mistakes. And I feel like we're going to see a little bit of it. We can see a little bit of mental warfare in this one between Sean and Strickland. But I don't think it will get under Jack's skin 100%. But I feel like Sean Strickland, he doesn't waste any of it, any of his stamina. His strikes are always perfected, always thrown with intent. But with Jack Hermansson, you know what you're getting. You're getting a wrestling game plan. His wrestling is phenomenal, and his grappling is second to none. Sean Strickland definitely cannot sleep on the grappling Jack Hermansson 100%. But do I feel like, as you mentioned there, do I feel like just Sean Strickland can be able to survive the grappling? Yes, as you mentioned, the likes of Michael Bisping have talked up the grappling of Sean Strickland. Definitely would like I would definitely like to see it get tested. I think he would definitely get tested in that first round. Jack Hermansson would come out heavy, come out fresh, and he would definitely shoot a double leg, a power double. We've seen him in the past, and he's phenomenal on him. So I feel like we might see Sean Strickland on his back in round one at phase. But I believe his get up game is gonna be good, and we'll see him get up. And I feel like in the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth round is where we'll see Sean Strickland take over the strikes, the long, lengthy strikes, putting on a good performance.
Yeah, Sean Strickland has had very high output in all of his middleweight fights. He typically lands over 100 significant strikes in a 3-round fight, and in his Uriah Hall fight, he landed even more than that. But I think this is going to be a very much a tougher matchup than Uriah Hall because of the grappling attack. But in the end, my pick here is Sean Strickland by unanimous decision.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Sean Strickland. I see maybe a potential late finish here for Sean Strickland. Maybe a TKO finish. Just wearing down Jack Hermansson is maybe what I can see happening as well in the fourth and the fifth round, where Jack Hermansson maybe has nothing left. Jack Hermansson has a phenomenal gas tank. He'll be able to go on forever. But I feel like the strikes will be wear and tearing on him in the fourth and fifth round. I think he's going to be all cut up. His nose is going to be like all bleeding. So definitely a TKO. I can see it happening at the end of the fifth round. But I feel like this is a good fight. We're in for a good main event, and the UFC is finally back as well. So I'm definitely excited. And then the co-main event, we've got Puna Soriano versus Nick Maximov. So this is a good co-main event. So who have you got in this one?
I have Punahele Soriano. I think he wins this one by decision. He's fighting Nick Maximov. He's 7-0. He fought, I'll be honest, he fought really bad competition. Guys that were like 0-6. And then he goes to the Contender Series. He goes up 2 weight classes, fights a heavyweight, and he defends all of the takedown attempts. And that was still one of the most gangster moves in Contender Series history. And now he's fighting the toughest fight of his career after he beat Cody Brundage. And I'll be honest, on the feet, he did lose a couple times to Cody Brundage in terms of just eating big shots. And Brundage's striking is really nothing to speak about. And I feel like he's very much a guy that needs to go to the ground to win fights. And that's very much a problem when you're fighting a guy in Soriano who has a wrestling base and hits like a truck, man. The big criticism I have Soriano is his gas tank and the fact that he winds up on pretty much every punch, and that opens him up to get taken down. So I think he might lose a round off of his back, but besides that, I think Nick Maximov's striking defense is not great, and Punahele Soriano is going to land a couple bombs and probably stun him a couple times. Of course, Maximov's probably going to have a tough fight ahead of him here if he can't get those takedowns on a regular basis, which I don't think he can. Soriano is he's a very strong guy, man. Very, very hard to take down. That's why Brendan Allen actually stood with him. He did really attempt those takedowns because he's a tough guy to take down. And yeah, I think this is going to be a rough night for Maximov, and this will be his first professional loss.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. So Puna Soriano in his last fight, as you mentioned there, took on Brendan Allen. Went to the distance as well, and there's no shame in that loss. Brendan Allen, top 15, just outside the rankings. He's a fantastic up and comer. So there's definitely no shame in that for Soriano. And if you look at before that, he knocked out Dusko Todorovic, knocked out Oscar Peixoto. So he's got heavy hands. He can knock out anyone in any fight. Nick Makimov, he's undefeated. As you mentioned there, likes the wrestling, likes the grappling. He's a Nick Diaz Academy. So what should come a graduate, should we say? And so that's why we know him. That's why he's probably in the co-main event. He's probably got either Nick or Nate in his corner. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, I'm going to go with Puna Soriano in this one. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets this one done via KO. I think we can see a finish in this one.
Yeah, Soriano is a very exciting guy. He had a setback in his last fight. I feel like he's going to get more momentum after this win by unanimous decision. And we'll move on to Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Carlston Harris. This is a very exciting fight. I honestly don't see this going the distance because Shavkat Rakhmonov has never won by decision. The guy is a finishing machine. He's got a sambo background. He has elite kickboxing, and he's fighting a guy in Carlston Harris who's a little bit older. They signed him off of Dana White looking for a fight, and he's got really good submissions, very impressive, diverse submissions as well. And in his last fight, a lot of people thought it was a striker versus grappler matchup. He goes out there and he knocks out Impa Kasanganay, who would look fairly impressive besides the Buckley loss. So that was a very impressive win for Harris there, and he's fighting a huge step up. This is an enormous step up from Impa Kasanganay, a former football player who had trained for like 3 years, to Shavkat Rakhmonov, who has dedicated a very large amount of his life to a variety of mixed martial arts. This is a bad matchup for Carlston Harris, man. I'm telling you, on the feet, Shavkat will stun him bad, and he'll knock him out, or he can jump on him and get a submission, as we saw in his last fight. He fought Michael Prazeres. Prazeres was, of course, 40, but he had never been finished before, and Shavkat was the first guy to finish him, and he tapped a black belt in the second round, and that was so impressive. Also tapped Alex Cowboy Oliveira in his debut in the first round with a guillotine. This guy has a lot of confidence in his submission and his power. I think he gets a first round KO here against Harris. And after this, it's time for a ranked opponent.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. Instead of the KO, I'm going to go for a submission in this one. I think Shavkat is going to catch him with a submission. Carlston Harris, the only way I see him getting this done is by punches, by TKO KO. I don't see him submitting Shavkat. I think he's too good on the ground for Carlston Harris, and that's where Carlston Harris shines. That's where he likes to do his best work, is on the ground. The only time we've seen Carlston Harris really get it done on the feet was in his last fight against Impa Kansage, when he got it done on the feet, upset the prospect, as you mentioned, a former football player. But yeah, Shavkat is an absolute savage. In the words of Joe Rogan, he's a marauder. He comes forward and he puts pressure on you, and he's going to take you down at one point. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. He's going to take you down, as you mentioned, a combat world champion. So no doubt in this fight will Shavkat take down Carlston Harris, and no doubt in my mind will Shavkat get a submission win. It's going to happen. I think round 2, round 1 is where he's going to get it and where he's fresh. It would surprise me in the first minute where they're both men are dry, and Shavkat gets that a rear naked shake, maybe a Kimura, something like that. I definitely see it going down. But my God, Shavkat is an absolute animal, and he's one of the prospects that I'm really looking forward to. As you mentioned, Carlston Harris, from Impa Kansage to Shavkat Rakhmonov, a massive jump up in competition. We're going to really see if Carlston Harris is ready for it yet. We saw him on the it was the UAE Warriors looking for a fight. That's where that's where we found him, and then he made his debut against Christian Aguilera, got that anaconda choke, and then obviously upset Impa Kansage. So that's how he's got himself to the position that he is now. But I feel like the UFC have just thrown him absolutely into the deep end, and Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to put him back down to the level he needs to probably fight at.
Yeah, he's a 2-1 favorite for a reason here. I expect him to get an early finish, and so does Lenny. So we'll move on to not Sam Alvey versus Phil Haas. That fight just got canceled today. Just for conversation, what was your pick in that fight? Because that was a very intriguing fight.
I was going to go with Phil Hawes in this one. I think Phil Hawes gets it done. Sam Alvey, man, he just hasn't looked himself. It's baffled me how he's still inside the UFC. I love Sam Alvey. He's one of the nicest guys that I've talked to. He's been on the show, but was he on? I can't remember the loss streak, but he hasn't won since.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait.
7 fights without a win. He had a draw.
He hasn't
with
won
Alan
since
Jones.
2018, and that was against Julian Vellante.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up. When you see guys like Kevin Lee getting released, Impa Kasagia getting released, and then you've got no disrespect to Sam Alvey, but you know he's when you see that happen, it's just like what's going on?
Yeah, we just talked about Barzola and Gibson too. Those guys getting released, and not Sam Alvey. Little bit.
But I got to credit Sam Alvey. He never says no to a fight. He never says no to a fight. He will always step in. It doesn't matter about the name. He's always stepping in there. But I feel like that Julian Marquez loss, that was an absolute. That picture of him getting choked out.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. I didn't like that one bit.
Yeah, Sam Alvey. Hopefully he still fights on this card, and it'd be crazy if he gets a win because he's in a very tough spot right now, and probably was going to lose that fight to Phil Haas. And we'll move on to what many people, including ourselves, consider to be the actual Ultimate Fighter 29 finale: Tresean Gore versus the champion Brian Battle. This is a fight a lot of people have been looking forward to, of course, because these two, as they faced off in the middle of the octagon at the conclusion of the season. Everybody was hyped for this fight, and Tresean Gore gets injured, shoulder injury, I believe it was, and now we have to wait. And in the meanwhile, Brian Battle, he was able to submit Gilbert Urbina, and obviously Gilbert's not a high-level guy. Gilbert had gotten starched by Gore in the show, but it was a short notice spot. There was really nobody else, so they went with Gilbert. And Gilbert, he actually did well in that first round, but he ultimately gassed, and he gave up quite quickly once Brian Battle got that rear naked choke. I'm going to go with Brian Battle in this spot. Is the only underdog I'm picking on this card. And Tresean Gore, he may be 4-0, but man, honestly, I don't think he's quite proven yet. He's a very powerful guy, but I feel like the opponents he's fought have kind of let him lead the dance, and he's not really faced a ton of adversity in these fights. The guys have folded as soon as he hits them. And Brian Battle, if you've seen any of his fights, this guy is kind of a slow starter at times. And once that second round comes around, he gets the takedown, and he eventually finds a submission, even against a guy in Petrosky who is Gracie trained, man. That guy's such a great grappler, and he was able to submit him. But at the end of the day, I will be going with Brian Battle to win this by decision. I feel like he's not going to let Tresean Gore bully him. He can outpoint him. He can take him down. And yeah, I feel like he gets this win by decision as an underdog.
I'm gonna go for the other side here. I'm gonna go Tresean Gore, and I feel like this might be the told you so of the fight, Oscar. As you mentioned there, a slow start of Brian Battle, and Tresean Gore. When you don't want to catch Tresean Gore, he's early on. The first round is when he hits like a truck. We saw it in the tough when we saw was it Gilbert Urbina?
Yeah,
absolutely starched him. And I feel like if Brian Battle doesn't start quick, doesn't get his game plan started early, Tresean Gore's going to clip him. He's going to clip him. He's going to clip him early. He's going to put his lights out, and that's what I'm banking on. And if it doesn't happen in that first round, it's Brian Battle's fight. The second and third round is where Brian Battle does his best work. He sorts himself out, and I feel like that first round, Brian Battle kind of it's a gimme round for his opponent. He's reading them. He's seeing what they've got. He's setting traps, sort of thing. So I feel like that's what you can't do against Tresean Gore, because Tresean Gore is going to come at you, and he's going to throw heavy lever. And if one of them heavy lever lands, it's game over. And I feel like that's what I'm going to bank on. I'm going to go for Tresean Gore landing a big one, and Brian Battle getting put out.
Yeah, and when Tresean Gore, when he fought Ryder Newman on the show, Ryder Newman has a wrestling background. I actually thought that Gore wouldn't be able to defend the takedowns, but he impressed me there, and he did defend them, and he beat the crap out of Newman on the feet. Battle, I feel like, is probably a better wrestler than Newman, and better BJJ as well. So that's something to look out for. Look out for. And Brian Battle, I've seen him. He'll go longer in fights. He almost has he actually does have double the experience of Gore. So that's a huge factor in this fight. And it's kind of strange that people are ignoring that, and they have Gore as the favorite. So I'm picking Brian Battle win by unanimous decision. And we'll
Yeah,
move on.
it's a tough fight to pick. I got to agree. But I feel like this is going to be a topic that we'll definitely speak about next week. But as you said there, we'll move on to Julian Erosa versus Steven Peterson. This is a tough fight between two vets, but I feel like Julian Erosa is going to have his number in this one. I feel like he's too good on the feet. And maybe Steven Peterson, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he likes the grappling, and I think Julian Erosa is very tricky on the ground as well. So we've seen it in the past of Julian Erosa. I can't remember on the top of my head. Didn't he get like a guillotine or maybe a modified guillotine?
You got a Darce choke over Charles Jordan in his last fight.
And we've seen Charles Jordan. He was scheduled to fight Ilya Tarubia after a fantastic performance against Andre Ewell. We're not going to speak about what would happen because we would have known what would happen. But I feel like this is a good fight for Julian Erosa. Very underrated. He's fought a lot of guys in his career. He's fought Paddy Pimblett, lost to Paddy Pimblett, but he's been around, done that, and since his second stint inside the UFC, he's really rejuvenated himself. Really right his career where he had wrongs. But I feel like Julian Erosa is going to get the better of Steven Peterson in this one. But what does Oscar think?
Yeah, Julian Erosa has been in and out of the UFC so many times, and I feel like this is where he belongs ultimately, because on the regional scene, he usually finishes guys quick. This guy is very well-rounded. He has tremendous power in his hands. He's got a really good gas tank, and he finds a way to break guys and submit them. So fighting a guy like Steven Peterson, who in his last fight, he fought Chase Hooper. A lot of people thought it was a fight where Steven Peterson needed to stand to win. He took him down and controlled him. He avoided all the submission attempts. That was very impressive because a lot of people speak highly about Hooper's grappling, but it was not enough, and Peterson showed his worth there. And for that, he fought Martin Bravo in Mexico City. That was a scrap, and then it ends with the iconic double spinning back fist, and he lands a harder one and gets the KO. Peterson is also a well-rounded guy, but I'll just say frankly that Julian Erosa definitely hits harder. He's got a better casting, more output, man. I think this is a good matchup for Erosa. This is definitely an easier matchup than who was it that he fought? Nate Landwehr, Sean Woodson. Those guys are absolute killers, and he weathered the storms and finished those guys. I feel like this is the easiest fight that Erosa's had in a while. Not to say it's an easy fight, but it's definitely a step down compared to a guy like Charles Jourdain, who's on the rise. Just had a fight booked against a guy who was fringe top 15. I think this is a good spot for Erosa. And ultimately here, I think he gets a unanimous decision. Grappling, I'm not entirely sure who the better grappler is, but Erosa can certainly hold his own and on the feet. I think he will land the cleaner shots and more often.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out straight out there. I'm gonna put it on the table. I think Julian Erosa is the better grappler. I feel like he potentially Julian Erosa can catch him in a Darce. We've seen it in the past. Julian Erosa loves his Darce chokes. He loves his unorthodox chokes, and it's definitely a possibility in this one. Will they go to the ground at one point? I believe so. I think Steven Peterson is definitely going to try and test Julian Erosa's grappling, and I feel like Julian Erosa can potentially set up maybe a Darce choke, something like that. But staying on the feet, I'm going to have to go with Julian Erosa as well, 100%. We've seen it in the past. We've seen Julian Erosa, though. He has been knocked out a few times in the past. If Steven Peterson can hit him on that chin clean with a lot of power, who knows what could happen? But do I believe Steven Peterson could do that? I do. I believe not. We've seen it in the past that he's primarily a grappler, likes to get the wrestling going. He's not knocked out a ton of people in his career, so I don't really see that going down. I think Julian Erosa is the better grappler and the better striker, and I feel like we're going to see it in this fight. I think this is a great matchup, as you mentioned, for Julian Erosa.
Yeah, Julian Erosa's chin is always a concern. He got knocked out way back in 2016, I believe it was, by Artem Lobov on The Ultimate Fighter. But Steven Peterson, not exactly a power puncher, so it's not a huge concern here, especially when he just ate Charles Jourdain's bombs in his last fight. So that's why he's such a big favorite. And we'll move on to the bantamweight matchup between Miles Johns and John Castaneda. This is a really good one. I really think this is kind of a showcase fight for Miles Johns here. He is a 2-1 favorite. He's the better wrestler, and on the feet, I think he does hit harder. That's for sure. Castaneda might win more minutes on the feet, but I feel like Johns will land the bigger shots. And quite honestly, I think this mostly takes place on the mat with Johns just getting a lot of control time.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. The thing is with Miles Johns, we know he's a great wrestler, and he's got a big. I think didn't he get a big? He's got a big uppercut, a big right hand. Who did he knock out? I can't,
He
was it
knocked
against
out
Anderson De Silva,
yeah,
and then Kevin
Santos.
Navadad. Yeah, and Kevin Navadad. But we're seeing he's got a big right hand. But his wrestling is where he does the key. Where he does his best work. And John Castaneda is he didn't have the best of debuts inside the UFC because he got matched up against and then Nathaniel Wood. But before that, he beat Marcelo Rojo. So he's definitely a credible guy. So he lost against Nathaniel Wood, then he knocked out Eddie Wineland. That was a very distressing fight. Seeing Eddie Wineland get knocked out like that, getting finished like that, has been happening too recently for Eddie Wineland. But in this one, I think Miles Johns can get the win. As I mentioned with John Russo, I feel like Miles John can win this anywhere he wants. He can win it on the mat, and I believe he might be able to knock out John Castaneda in this one as well.
Yeah, the only way I think Castaneda wins this fight is probably with a submission off of his back, especially after John's tires later. He tends to tire in his fights. But then again, people questioning his cardio. He's just got 2 third-round KOs. So even though he might be tired, he's still dangerous. And he can definitely knock out a guy like Castaneda. But I do think he wins this by unanimous decision. Johns never looked better than he has in his last fight against Anderson Dos Santos. That was a brutal KO. He was piecing up his leg the whole time. That's something we hadn't seen from him much, those leg kicks. And eventually he got a brutal combo with the body shots and the big hook and put him out. And that's something that's a possibility here. But I do know that Castaneda has a very good chin, and I will go with Miles Johns here, especially when he's got such a big wrestling advantage.
John Castaneda has been given not the best of matchups inside the UFC in his career. Miles Johns, Nathaniel Wood, got that winner of Eddie Wineland, so it'd be interesting to see how he matches up against Miles Johns in this one. But Hakeem Dawodu, I talked about this one before we went on there. Hakeem Dawodu versus March Silva. This is a fantastic fight, and it's on the prelims. This one's definitely going to deliver.
How can you not love this fight? These are two guys that have a Muay Thai base. Hakeem Dawodu has fantastic takedown defense too. He showed that when he fought Zabari Tukhugov. Tukhugov is such a talented guy everywhere the fight goes, and he really outpointed him in that fight. And in his last fight, even though he got dominated for most of the fight by Movsar Evloev, in that third round, he landed the most significant strike of the entire fight. And he had Movsar in big trouble. That's the biggest trouble Movsar's ever been in. Movsar's undefeated. So this guy, no matter how bad the fight is going, he can still finish you. And he's fighting Michael Trezano, one of the guys off the 28th season of The Ultimate Fighter, I believe, or 27th. Trezano is such a talented guy. I believe he has a win over Bryce Mitchell. Michael Trezano, in his last fight, he was a big underdog against Ludovic Klein. Ludovic Klein had just knocked out Shane Young with a crazy head kick, and people were thinking Trezano was going to be one of those guys that's on Ludovic's highlight reel, and he was not. He was actually the guy bullying Ludovic. He walked forward, put pressure on him, and Ludovic, who really never grapples, Ludovic was having such a tough time with him. He actually took him down and held him down for a little bit there, but it wasn't enough, and Trezano was ahead. At the end of the day here, I think this is going to be a fight where it goes to the judges, and it's all about the volume here. I don't think either guy here is way better than the other, but at the end of the day, I do think Hakeem Dawodu is the more active guy, and that's why he'll win this fight.
I got to agree with you on this one as well. We saw in his last fight against, as you mentioned, Mike Trezano against Ludovic Klein. I'm on the Ludovic Klein train. I was before that fight, and I still am. I think Ludovic Klein still has a lot of potential to go in his career, and he will definitely do some damage. And Mike Trezano really shot me in that fight, putting the pressure on Ludovic. Ludovic just didn't like when Mike Trezano got in his face, putting throwing them strikes, pushing up against the fence. And this is where I see the difference. I feel like Hakeem Dawodu does not let Mike Trezano back him up. Hakeem Dawodu will throw one back to back up Mike Trezano. So I feel like Hakeem Dawodu, his stubbornness is going to get the better of him this one. I feel like this is going to be a technical fight in the middle of the center of the cage and I see Hakeem Dawodu getting the better of Mike Trezano. Mike Trezano is very long, ranging for the division. But I see Hakeem Dawodu getting inside, throwing them uppercuts, getting them leg kicks working early as well. When we're seeing, Mike Trezano lose, it was Rene choked by Grant Dawson. But Hakeem Dawodu in his last fight, as you mentioned, against Mosar Evelev, and he put on, it was a very close fight, the most trouble we've ever seen with Evelev. And to say that, you're doing something right. And I think Mosar Evelev gets this one done. I don't think we see this one go to the ground unless Mike Trezano shocks me, but I feel like Hakeem Dawodu is the better fighter in this one. But this is a tough one. It's a tough one to pick.
Yeah, let me just correct myself. I said Trezano beat Bryce Mitchell. That's incorrect. They were in the same season, but it was actually Luis Pena that he had beaten, which that's a very good win. But at the end of the day, you look right there, significant strikes landed per minute. Mean Hakeem Dawodu lands at 4.7 and Trezano lands at 3.2. That's a significant edge. That's why I'm picking Dawodu here. And also, I feel like he's got the higher quality wins and more UFC experience. I think he should roll here. And hopefully he gets closer to the rankings because, man, he's been on the edge of the rankings for so long. And I feel like he's one of the best featherweights in the world.
I've got to agree. I'm moving on to the next fight. This one you were very, very intrigued to talk about before we went on air. One of the, I'm really hard to pronounce names. How do you pronounce his second name? Njukwani?
Yeah. His name is Chidi Njukwani. His
Njukwani
brother is a UFC vet. He just fought on the Eagle FC card. Both brothers are fantastic strikers. They're both Nigerian too. And he's fought a lot of UFC guys outside of the UFC. We're talking about guys like Max Griffin. Let me look at right here.
Bilal Muhammad, did you mention
Andre
earlier?
Fialho, Melvin Gillard. That's really impressive. And some of these guys he actually beat. Alan Joban, he actually finished him with a body kick back in 2011. Chidi Njokwani has really been putting the work outside of the UFC. And he tends to lose when he's fighting a guy that he's a inferior grappler to. And that's probably the case here against Marc-Andre Barrel. But Marc-Andre is not much of a wrestler. He's actually more of a clinch guy. And he's very powerful, man. When he fought Krzysztof Jotko in his debut, that was a very close fight. We know how good Jotko is, and Barrel was very competitive with him. And Barrel, unfortunately, after he went on a tough stretch, 0-3, he started in the UFC. Surprisingly, the UFC kept him around, and then he starches Oscar Pihota. That win was overturned, but that's, it's one of those weed overturns. Doesn't really count. And then after that, he fights Dalcha Lungiambula, and Dalcha the whole time threatening him with the power, but Barrel is the guy walking forward and landing the strikes more often. That was a really good test for Barrel. Also beat Abu Azaitar, TKO'd him in the third round. Barrel is very much battle tested, a lot more UFC experience, but Njokwani, as I said, fighting UFC level guys outside of the UFC. But it's really going to come down to Marc-Andre's output and his clinch game. I think he can bully Njokwani in the clinch. I think he can outmuscle him on the way to a split decision. I think this will be a very close fight. And Chidi has very legitimate skills, but I feel like the UFC did him no favors in his debut.
Well, Mark Andre Barry was on the cusp of losing his UFC career after he went 3 back-to-back losses against Andrew Sanchez, Christopher Jotko, and Junyon Park, and it was a must-win against Oscar Pichota. And something clicked in that fight, and I feel like it was more volume. If you get more volume at Mark Andre Barry, he's going to win the fight. He's got heavy hands. We've seen it in the Oscar Pichota fight. If he lands them hands, it definitely can put you out. We've seen it in the Oscar Pichota fight, and then we saw it against in the Abu Azaitar fight, and then Doucher. He didn't really want to trade with Doucher because let's be honest, who wants to trade with Doucher? He's big, he's muscly, and if you trade with him, who knows what's going to happen? And as you mentioned, Chidri Njoukani is for everyone inside the UFC, but outside the UFC, he fought former UFC Bellator champion Rafael Carvalho, John Salter. He's fought literally everyone outside the UFC. And in his last fight against Mario Souza, a 12-1 prospect, I felt like the UFC maybe thought Mario Souza was going to win that one, and Njoukani put on a great performance.
Yeah, and Njoukani is one of the most overqualified contender series guys of all time, man. This guy's he came in there 20-6. When do you see that on contender series? You tend to see guys that are like 7-1. So for him to be so experienced, that was a very impressive fight by Njoukani. Mario Souza actually was on the contender series the year before. He got a win. Dana said he wasn't impressed. He still needed to see more, and he saw more, but from Njoukani. Njoukani got the TKO there late, and that's actually also a good attribute there is Njoukani's gas tank. He has a lot of late finishes, and Barreled, he did slow down significantly in the Abu Azaitar fight. Both guys were dog tired. They were ready to puke in a bucket during that fight. But yeah, so that could be an outcome here. Maybe Njoukani gets a late finish, but I will go with Barrel here by split decision. This will be a very close one, and it could be fight of the night.
Yeah, definitely. I got to agree. This is either way. I'm going to go with the Njoukani side. I see him, as you mentioned there, Mark Andre Barry. He's when he puts on a lot of pressure, he's naturally everyone's going to get tired. And then we've seen in his last fight, was it his last fight against Abu Azaitar, or was it the one before? When they were swinging wild, that was in Abu Dhabi, or whatever you want to call it. They were swinging wild, and they were swinging wild. And as you mentioned, they're looking to be sick in the bucket. It was ugly scenes with the striking at the end of that, and I feel like if that happens here, Njoukani, he's got a great gas tank and could pick them apart at the later stages, the round 2, the round 3. Picking them apart, but this is a great fight. This one could really go either way. In the words of Oscar, I feel like he uses this every podcast. In the words of Oscar, this could be a pick and one.
Yeah, certainly. That's definitely the case there. And move on to a fight which I don't think is a pick 'em at all. Alexis Davis is fighting Julia Storilenko. Alexis Davis has been around the block. She's been a part of this division pretty much ever since it started. She's fought Ronda. She's fought Kaylin Chukagian. She's fought Jennifer Mine. She's fought pretty much everybody there is to fight at the top of the division. And some of those were, even though she may have lost them, they were split decisions, or she was competitive all the way through. And now she's back at bantamweight. She did lose her last fight to Penny Kianzad. I actually thought she won that fight. That was a split decision. And even though Davis was getting cracked a lot in the face, she actually had more volume, and she really impressed me with the leg kicks, man. She also fought Sabina Mazo before that. And Sabina Mazo was a hot prospect. A lot of people thought Sabina was going to win that. That's why she was a big favorite. And she actually goes out there and gets constant takedowns, and Sabina can't get up. And on the feet, the calf kicks were so impressive to see somebody as weathered as Davis, somebody who's been in the game so long, to start adding new tools to the game, start improving. It's really impressive here. Storilenko, on the other hand, kind of the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey. She wants those judo throws. She wants the arm bar. That's how she's won the majority of her fights, by arm bar. And when she can't get it, tends to go south of her. Davis can win this. I think she can win this on the feet and on the ground. On the feet, Storilenko, the striking is not pretty at all. And as I just said, Davis is out here striking with one of the best in the division in Penny and beating her. And on the ground, Storilenko will look for arm bars, but if she can't get them, the result is her being on her back, and the get-up game is not great. So really good fight for Davis here. she should be a bigger favorite than minus 215. I would put her like minus 320. I think that's how much I believe in Davis.
I mean, you pretty much touched it up there perfectly. Davis has fought everyone inside her career. She made her debut against Sarah Kaufman. She fought Shayna Baszler, who you might know from WWE, used to fight in the UFC as well. She fought Liz Carmouche, Jessica Andrade, and not Jessica Andrade, Jessica Ronda Rousey. It goes on and on and on. I could be here for days. She's fought
Amanda Nunes, and she beat her in the second round. Yeah, one of the few women that they have done it.
Yeah, she gave the blueprint to Julia Pena.
Yeah, that's so impressive of what Davis has done across her career. Despite a 2011 record, she's accomplished a ton.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think Alexa Davis gets this one done. I don't see how Julia Starenko wins this one unless she gets an armbar, and that's what you said. If she banks on the armbar, and if she doesn't get the armbar, she kind of like, where do I go from here? Because she doesn't know what to do. As you mentioned, the Gale game is not great, and not all. Although her get game's not great, I think she got started at the weight cut as well. I think the weight cut is for her 135 pounds is not great. Was it against Juliana Avila? I think it was the first fight where she kind of just collapsed on the scale.
What happened there was she made the weight early. And she just waited around at her weight, and that was a botch what she did there. She actually said the weight cut is not super hard for her, but she just messed up and she was at the weight for too long, and her body just quit on her.
Let's hope that she gets that right and doesn't get on weight early on. But yeah, I feel like if in this fight, I think Alexa Davis can pretty much keep it on the feet, keep it standing, and win it on the exchanges. I feel like Julia Starenko will go for a takedown at one point, 100%. But I think Alexa Davis is going to be too prone to it and keep it standing.
Yeah, and we'll move on to Jailton Almeida's debut against Danilo Marques. Jailton is the biggest favorite on the card, and I agree with him being in that spot. He's fighting Danilo Marques, who debuted in the UFC against a very low-level guy. I don't even remember his name, and it doesn't matter, quite honestly. Both guys were very tired in that fight. He rode out the back and eventually got the decision. Submitted Mike Rodriguez. He was beating Kennedy in Sekatru before he got finished in that third round. Those were guys, the guys he fought, he had a big grappling advantage over him. That's why he did so well. He doesn't have a grappling advantage that's too large against Almeida. He has a BJJ advantage, but an overall grappling advantage, Almeida's got him beat. Almeida, he's got really, really impressive wrestling. On the Contender Series, he fights a guy from Dagestan, a guy with a wrestling base. And then in the preview to the fight, they like to interview the fighters, and they ask him, hey, what's your fighting style? He says, I have a Habib style. And I was saying, what are you thinking? You're fighting a guy from Dagestan. How are you going to out-wrestle him? He goes out there. He out-wrestles a 9-0 Dagestani wrestler, a guy named Nasrudinov. He beats him up, man, and he gets the rear naked choke in round 2. He's the real deal when it comes to the ground. Danilo will, of course, threaten him once it goes to the ground, but a big concern with Danilo, too, is the gas tank. As we saw in the Kennedy fight, come that third round, he was completely gassed, man, and he just folded once he started getting hit, and that's not a good look if you're fighting a guy that's got the kind of finishing capability that Almeida does. He doesn't have the most technical striking, but he's got pop, and much more pop than Danilo. I think he gets a third round KO here against Danilo Marques after Danilo gets so tired from chasing submissions and not getting them.
I'm going to agree with you with chasing submissions and being tired, but I feel like both men are going to be tired in this one. I feel like we're going to see Almeida get tested a little bit in that first round with the submission threat with Marques, but he's going to use his get up game to get up. I feel like Almeida's going to want to strike with him in this one. I feel like he's not going to really want to play the ground game too much. But as you mentioned, in his last fight, he said he's got a Habib style, and he put on an absolutely fantastic performance. But I see Marquez getting him in a submission threat early, and then Almeida saying maybe that is the wrong game plan, standing with him. But I feel like in that third round, Danny Marquez, I can't remember which fight it was in. His striking was sloppy. The technique was totally off. It was wrong. So I see Almeida maybe having the potential being the edge on the striking. I feel like he's going to have the better striking, but grappling wise, I think it's going to be very even. So this is a very interesting one. But I feel like you were really talking high of Almeida before we went on air.
Yeah, like it's basically unheard of a guy out wrestling a Dagestani wrestler. So for Almeida to do it, especially a guy who's undefeated, that's very impressive. So I think we'll see Almeida in the top 15 eventually. That's how highly I believe he'll get. And we'll move on to Jason Witt versus Phil Rowe. This is going to be a slobber knocker, as Jim Ross likes to say. Jason Witt is very unreliable when it comes to
taking shots.
Yeah. But I'll give him credit. In his last fight, he fought Brian Barberena. Brian Barberena, say what you want about him. Maybe he had somewhat of a decline, but this guy was able to rock Vicente Luque. He able to drop him when they fought in the first round. So that's something that really has not gone away. Brian Barberena hits like a truck, and he hurt Jason Witt on several occasions. In fact, there's an argument that he had a 10-8 round in the last round, but Witt was able to tough it out, and he did not go out. So I'll definitely give him credit for that. But at the end of the day, when you're getting knocked out by Semmelsberger in 17 seconds, also, just been knocked out 6 times, I believe, in his career. As Forrest Griffin, like they once he
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah, 5 times. As Forrest Griffin likes to say, your chin does not get better over time, and that's certainly not the case for Witt. Every time you get knocked out, your chin gets worse. There's no argument against that. He's fighting on Phil Rowe, who he actually likes to label himself a grappler. He trains with Jacob Souza in Florida all the time. Really good grappling, but we've seen a lot of striking from him as of late. And this guy is super tall for this division, very tall. He likes to use his elbows, his knees, and I think one of those huge strikes will land and it'll put out Jason Witt. I think Jason Witt shoots for a takedown. He probably gets it. And then we go to the second round where Rowe, starts the round on his feet. And I think he lands one of those strikes, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you.
Me. Just like when he fought Orion Cosey. Orion Cosey is very, very durable, and he knees him in the head, and he goes down, man. I think Rowe has very diverse tools, and I think he's gonna put away Witt here. Witt, as we said, does not take damage well, and Rowe has the tools to beat him.
Yeah, 100%. He does not take a punch very well. Probably not the greatest I've ever. Probably the worst I've seen in MMA. There's not too many people that I've seen take a punch as worse as Jason Witt. He's been knocked out 5 times. I just remember that the Matt Semmelsberger, him getting starched in 17 seconds, and then getting knocked out by Takashi Sato as well in round 1. Both in round 1. If Jason Witt can survive not getting knocked out in that first round, I feel like it could be his fight. The second and third round, he can get his grappling going a bit. But the big important question is if he can survive that first round. And I feel like I just can't pick on a guy who's been knocked out that much in his career. It's just a risky pick. I can't see it happen. I think Philip Rowe is we've seen it in his last few fights. He's a great grappler, as you mentioned. He's been training over there with Jessica. I was about to say Jessica Andrade, but trained over there with Jacare Souza. So he's got a great grappling. He's probably tested his grappling for this fight. But Philip Rowe has been knocking people out, and I feel like Philip Rowe is going to connect clean with Jason Witt early on, and I feel like this is a KO win for Philip Rowe. I just don't see it going anywhere else.
Yeah, Jason Witt. He's got the wrestling pedigree to beat Rowe, but as we said, none of it matters if you can't take the damage, which Rowe will definitely dish out the damage. And I think he finds the second round KO. And we'll move on to Malcolm Gordon versus Dennis Bondar in the flyweight
Finally,
division. It feels like we've been talking about Dennis Bondar's debut for a year now because we have. This guy has had a delayed debut for such a long time. We did a ton of research on him like a year ago. We watched the tape. We know how
he's
good his
wrestling,
grappling
man.
is.
Wow.
And he's fighting a guy Malcolm Gordon who he's got kind of the same game plan as Bondar will have. He's looking for the takedown. He's looking for the submission. And I don't think he has the grappling advantage here for Gordon against Bondar here. And in terms of striking, might give ever so slightly the edge to Malcolm Gordon here, but it won't matter. Honestly, I think Gordon might be the one getting the takedown, and off of his back, I think Bondar probably gets an armbar here. Gordon, even though he's a BJJ black belt, he's not exactly the best defensively here. He got triangled by Amir Al-Bassi. I think he probably gets submitted here. Malcolm Gordon, he's had a lot of tough matchups. He fought Sumaderji, got knocked out in 30 seconds, but I think that Bondar has the style to beat him. He's got a really good record, 16-3. He's been UFC ready for a while now. I think it's his time to shine.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Malcolm Gordon's been knocked out 4 times in five losses. But I feel like that it ain't gonna happen this one. Dennis Bondar is gonna get a submission win. Yeah, we've been speaking about it for a very long time. I remember searching him up and watching him and thinking his grappling is so technical. His scrambles are wild, but it's everything he does is perfection. He doesn't waste any energy. He's always like he's a position over submission guy. And I feel like he's going to pick up. He's going to do this in this fight. I feel like we're going to see him get a position over submission. But eventually he will lead up to that submission. And I feel like he's going to submit Malcolm Gordon in round 1. I feel like I'm going to go here. Round 1, I think he gets the submission. Dennis Bondar puts himself on the map in the flyweight division. And I think that sets the tone for the rest of the night.
Yeah, Bondar has a 10-fight winning streak. And most of those have been inside the distance. The guy's a true finisher. I think he brings a lot of excitement to the flyweight division. And I'm really happy that the flyweight division is in this spot out with the Moreno Davison trilogy. It's really entertaining, and it's wild that they even considered getting rid of this division a while ago.
Well, there we go. There we have a UFC fight night, Hermansson versus Strickland. That is a preview. We recapped Eagle FC, Bellator. I don't think we have anything big to kind of talk about, or maybe anything else this weekend.
Honestly, in terms of news, the only thing we have is Chael Sonnen talking about Henry Cejudo re-entering the USADA pool, and he says he's training 2 times a day for his comeback. Dana White, he was asked if Henry will fight this year, and he says probably not. So maybe Henry Cejudo, what's a possibility? Maybe he can work out something where he gets released from his contract and he fights for the promotion that he's commentating on, Eagle FC. Could you picture that?
I can't. I can't. I don't think UFC or Dana White would be would let Henry Cejudo, a guy who is capable as much as Henry Cejudo, let him go. Yeah, you might not like him, but he's got phenomenal skills. He was Olympic champion, flyweight champion, bantamweight champion. I don't think the UFC let him go. I think he stays inside the UFC if he does come back. And as you said, he is coming to come back. So it'd be interesting to see what he said. He does want Volkanovski. So as Dana White said, you can't jump straight in there, and so he's going to have to take a fight to get to the belt. So who's it going to be? Maybe Yair, but man, he's really small for the division unless he's fighting Volkanovski.
Yeah, he really is. That's why he was always picking Volkanovski, because of the hype. But yeah, that's going to be really exciting if it happens, because Cejudo's been teasing this forever and it feels like it never really happened. So hopefully that does happen. I also wanted to talk about a very notable fight announcement that happened as of late. We've been saying we want a favorable matchup for Donald Cerrone for a while now, and he got it. He got the fight. He got Joe Lozon, one of the UFC legends. I think this is going to be somebody's going to walk out of that fight with a bonus. Maybe both guys, maybe one guy, but nonetheless, I think we'll be entertained for the entirety of it.
Yeah, 100%. As you mentioned, it's definitely a winnable fight for Donald Cowboy Cerrone at 155 pounds as well. So he mentioned he was making his drop, and this is, and he said he's going to make a drop down to 155 pounds, and this is it. This is the last run for Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, if Donald, I think the loser of this fight will retire nonetheless. Maybe the winner retires anyway, but yeah, Donald Cerrone says he wants to reach 50 total UFC fights, and he's gonna have to have matchups like this if he wants to get near that.
And then we have obviously got one big one before we top up. We are an MMA channel. We like to talk about MMA, but I know Oscar is a fan of WWE, and what happened this weekend was the Royal Rumble. I'm sure he might have a few comments on that.
Yeah, well, it was the first time where we've had the men and the women's rumbles be won by former UFC champions. Brock Lesnar won the 30-man Royal Rumble by eliminating Drew McIntyre, and not Becky Lynch. Ronda Rousey won the Women's Royal Rumble by eliminating Charlotte Flair. Ronda Rousey, she has been very hated by WWE fans simply because she says the facts. She said that the sport is fake, that you compare to MMA, it is much less dangerous, and that's just a fact. But wrestling fans, I'll just say that they're very sensitive. So when they heard that, they piled on her, but they switched up on her really quick, because there was a huge ovation when she walked out in front of the fans. Ronda Rousey still using the talents that she used outside of the octagon to promote her fights in the UFC. Remember, when she started in the UFC, a lot of people hated her. A lot of people wanted to see her get beat up, and now she doesn't actually get beat up in the ring, but she still promotes, she still draws, and she's still very popular.
Yeah, 100%. I've got to agree. It was interesting. It was a good event. I liked it. I feel like the women's Royal Rumble was much more entertaining than the men's. Yeah. So it was and then obviously Ronda Rousey topping it off. Number 28, I think she came out to, and the uproar of the crowd. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and also Brock Lesnar, he did wrestle Bobby Lashley on that card, former Bellator fighter. And Roman Reigns, of course, interfered there. The advocate for Paul Heyman, he betrayed him, and now that obviously sets up the match for WrestleMania between those two. Brock Lesnar has been doing incredibly well for himself financially in the WWE. You remember he faced off with DC after DC knocked out Stipe Miocic, and we thought that was all but a done deal, because once they go in the cage, that tends to be a sign that the contract is being printed. But nope. Brock Lesnar.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah, I know what happened exactly. Brock Lesnar received a significantly larger offer from the WWE. If I'm not mistaken, I think he gets paid north of $10 million a year to compete. So Brock Lesnar is doing very well for himself.
Wow, incredible. As you mentioned there, what would have happened if Brock Lesnar came back and faced DC? It would have been a fantastic fight. And we will never know, and we will never talk about it because it never happened. But yeah, it's been a fantastic show. We talked about Hermansson versus Strickland, talked about UFC coming up this weekend. We talked about Bellator, talked about EFC, and then we just touched up on the Royal Rumble and obviously Donald Cowboy Cerrone. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're tuning in next week when we get to talk about Hermansson versus Strickland and UFC 271. It's going to be an absolutely phenomenal episode next week. I can't wait. But any last minute predictions for this weekend?
Yeah, I'll just say this is going to be a fight where Sean Strickland can finally vie for the title. After this fight, I think he'll get a signature win here. He'll probably say some nonsense in his post-fight interview, but that's what we're expecting here from Sean Strickland. The guy is full out hard sparring with Dominic Reyes without headgear, with 4-ounce gloves during fight week. The guy's a madman. Who knows, man? Who knows?
What a savage. Honestly, what a savage. You mentioned there we'll probably see Sonic in the post-fight interview, but guaranteed we'll see Sonic said in the cage while they're fighting as well. He loves to do that. But yeah, we've been talking for too long. 1 hour and 20 minutes these guys have been listening for, so they're probably sick of us now. So we'll see you all next week when we get to talk everything what happened, and we get to talk about the all important UFC 271 Adesanya versus Whitaker. See you all next week.